Okay, now I'm back in Sublime Text and I'm here and I have a split screen where I have view, layout, two columns, so I can see both the style.css and our index.html document. So we're going to style our website. If you have anything in your style.css folder or file, just make sure it's clear so you have a clean. There should be nothing in there, maybe a comment at the top letting you know this is your file and what it's for. But you don't want to have any code in it just yet, and it's linked in your index.html to the style.css file. So now we're going to go ahead and start to style our website. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and put some styles in and made some notes, so this will go just a little bit faster for us. And that way we'll be able to kind of talk through what these rules mean as we're going through it. And typically what I like to do and what you would find yourself doing mostly is styling from the top of your index.html page, your website, all the way down. Usually you'll have a kind of a best practice where I like to style from the beginning all the way down. So you're starting off at the top. The very first actual element that we have is an HTML element. So I'm gonna go ahead and uncomment this and just see what we're doing with our website. Before I even do that, let me just put that back real quick. Before I even do that, as you're looking at your website, since we have nothing that's open in our styles.css folder, our website should look like this, pretty much plain. We haven't connected the rules just yet. So we're gonna go ahead and style this and see what happens as we style from the top down, from the top to the bottom of our website. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this part right here, uncomment, and look at our HTML element. You can add background, you can add styles and rules to almost any element in HTML. You can even style the HTML element itself, which is like the root element for your website. You can style that. And notice what I've done here. Now I could have put something like background, let me just say I could have put like background blue if I wanted to, or something of that nature. Instead of having it be linear grade, I could have just put like blue or color here. But what I want to do, I want to add something a little bit different. I want to add this linear gradient, so make our website look a little bit different. So you can type in HTML, the brackets, background, linear dash gradient, and then this within parentheses, what you have is to bottom, because a gradient can go from the left to the right, or from top to bottom. It can go in different directions. So this is to bottom, then a comma, and then RGB, the manner in which we write our code or our colors in CSS. RGB is one way to do it. So we're saying let it have no red, a little bit of green, and more blue, and let it go from this bluish color to white. So that should be what happens to our HTML element. A linear gradient to bottom, RGB 0, 51, 153, and then the comma right here in white, and make sure you put the parentheses where they should be, around the numbers here and on the outside of the to bottom and on the outside of the white. So let's see what happens if we save this and we go over to our website and we refresh. Well, there you go. Now we have a linear gradient on the background of our entire website, and it goes from blue all the way down to the bottom to white. And you can see that's exactly how it works. Now you can see, even just with that one little style rule that we wrote, our website beginning to take shape. It's starting to have some character and some color to it. So we've added that to our HTML element. So let's go and add a few more things. So once you do the top to bottom, so to speak, of your index.html page, you start to maybe do a few other things. What I'm going to do here also is I'm going to take this away, and I'm going to add a style to the our actual change and put this right here. I'm going to add a style to our HTML and our body elements. So what that essentially does is it essentially just sets the font size. Now you may not see completely a different change exactly, because most browsers will have one EM, and EM is one of the units you can use to set font size, or units you can use in CSS where you need to make something a certain size. Well, this EM is a relative unit, and it's relative to whatever the parent container is for whatever you're styling or whatever you're sizing. Well, right now I'm setting both the body and the HTML element at 1 EM, which is about 16 pixels. I'm setting it at that because that's basically the root for our entire website. The HTML element contains everything, and obviously everything you see on the body is in the body is what you see on the website. So by setting this to 1 EM, anything else that I style relative to that is going to be either twice as big as that or half as big as that. Whatever we style it as, 1.5 EM or 2 EM, is going to be based off of this relative size. So even though I save that, we're not going to see much of a change on our website. Even though we refresh it, essentially it's going to be the same because it's already at the default setting. It just allows me to manage some other stuff as we move forward. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep this comment here. And you can add comments throughout your CSS file to let you know kind of what you're doing and how you're managing things. But I'm going to keep this overall body style. So now we're going to start to add some style and rules to our body section. And this right here, as I kind of move this away right here, this will really make our body section start to take shape, if you will. So let's talk about what's in this and kind of scoot this over so you can see a little bit more of it. What's in this? By doing the width of the body element, I'm saying, hey, make our body element 85% of the total window. So it's not going to be, 100% of the width of the window. It's going to be 85% of the total window of whatever it's in, and it's in the HTML element. I'm also saying the margin. And you notice from our chapter, our book, that we mentioned that you can put margin, and you can set margin for the entire space around something, or you can set margins on either side. So by using this shorthand, using just two values here, I have the margin at 30px, which will separate it from the edges of the website, the edges of the screen, if you will, and that's for the top and the bottom. And then the right and left values, because this will do top and bottom and right and left by doing two, is auto. And what that does is it lets the browser automatically set the margin for the right and left side. And what that will essentially do is center our content for us, make it centered, which is what we want, everything in our body to be centered to some extent. Then we have font family here. And what I did is I put Helvetica New. And so what that will allow us to do is just have a sans serif font. We talked about that in our book as well, that sans serif typically does not have some of the fancy curly cues on it. It's more of a straightforward type of font. And Helvetica New is a font family that's associated with the sans serif generic font, if you will. And they say that's kind of better for web pages because websites are kind of backlit based on the computer screen or the screen you're looking at. And so sometimes not having the fancy curly cues makes it a little bit easier to read. So sans serif is a good font to choose sometime for the web. And then our background color. So we have a background color for our body. And if you know and you remember from our discussion in the book on colors, RGB is one of the ways you can write colors, just like we did up here. This RGB 255, 255, 255 is essentially going to make our background color white. So we maxed out the maximum value for this RGB code in each of the red, green, and blue. And we do that, that makes it white, that turns it white. The other thing that we're doing here is we have a border. And to let a border show, you have to tell the browser what type of border it's going to be. And for here, we chose solid. It can be a dotted border, it can be a double line border, but we're going to make it solid, we're going to make it black, and we're going to make it only 4 pixels thick. So that tells the browser to make it solid, to make it the color black, and make it 4 pixels thick. And because we're using the shorthand, we don't have to do border dash top, and I could do that. See, I can do border top, I can do border right, border left. By just doing border, this one border, and adding this code here, it's going to do it for all around the entire border of the body. And then I added something called a border radius, which might be a little new to us. And what that do is that will help round the corners of our website and make it look a little more circular, or just a little corner instead of being a point, make it a little more rounded. So let's see what all this looks like as we add this into our website. We add these body styles right here into our website, the way it looks. I'm going to save it. And then I'll go over here to our website. And I'll hit refresh. And there you go. Voila. We now have our website such that we have a margin in between our borders. Right here, we have a bit of a margin that's been centered. We have a border that's all black, that's solid around our website, and it's curved with the border radius. We have a different font. If you notice, the font was different than the way it was before. It's a different font. And we have it, so the styles that we just applied have just been applied to our website. And if I go back here, if I comment this out, and by the way, I did purchase this. It just popped up because I haven't put it on this computer yet. If I go back here and I comment that out, just hit style, just to comment it out and save it again, you'll see that when we go back here, what it looked like just before that. So the font was different. All of that was different. We didn't have our stuff centered in the middle. We didn't have our content right up against the edge of our window, if you will. And if I go back into here and we look at how our margins are working, once I take that out, it's going to make our body be 85% of the width, the margin be 30 on the top and the bottom, automatically centered. The font family is going to change. The background color of just the body changes. The HTML stays the same. It gives us a different effect there. The background color is changed. The border is solid black, 4 pixels around, and the border radius is 8. So I'm going to save that again, so we can take a peek at what that looks like. once we add all that in. And so now our content is centered, we have a white background, and our font is changed, and all those styles have been applied, as you can see. And what I'll just show you on the side here is I commented this out, but you can add shadows. Anything that you're dealing with in HTML is a box, right? So you can do anything to that box. You can add a border, as we've done. You can add margin between it and other elements. You can add a background color. You can do a lot with it. You can even add a shadow. And I'll take this out. I don't quite like the effect, but I'll just show you that you can do it. I'll take this out and add a box shadow for our entire body. And as I save that and go back here and we'll just refresh it, you can see how it pops up a little bit. You can see the shadow that pops up on our website. If you want to keep it, you can certainly keep that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I just wanted to show you can do that with anything in HTML. You can take that, anything you're dealing with elements, essentially a box, and you can add a border to it. You can add padding around it. You can add shadow to it, make it pop off the screen a little bit. There's so much you can do with CSS, and that's kind of why it's a great language to learn. So what I'll do is I'll just put that back just so we have that. So that's there. And now, so this is our body. I'll save it. And now we're going to go to header styles. And so our header element, and we'll keep this comment right here as our header element. I'm going to erase this part right here so to uncomment this so the code is shown to you. So now we go to header style. And you want to kind of let yourself know where you are. You have body style right here. You have header style right here. So what's going to happen with our header now? And we know that we added our header earlier in our course. We added a header around this H1 element. So this is just going to affect this box that's containing this H1 element, that's around this H1 element here. This is my first website. And so what I've done here is taken the header, we'll add a margin to it, and the margin will make kind of go flat up against the top and the bottom, center it automatically. Now let's add some padding. And padding, as you know, when you think about the box, it's what's happening within the box. The margin is outside of the box between that element and other elements, what's next to it. The padding is within the box and taking that content and giving it some space within the box. We want to do text align center. And what I figured we also do is make the background of our header the same color as our overall style. So this background linear gradient, to bottom, RGB 0, 51, 53, 153, and then black instead of white, because that'll bleed into our navigation bar in a minute. So it's almost the same color. We're just going to black relative versus white. I'll do that. And then this font size, what we'll do with the font size is we'll set it to 2EM, if we're on 2 M's here. And remember I mentioned that when we set font size for anything that's within a root element, so this header element is obviously within the body. And since up here we set the bodies, the body and the HTML font size to 1 EM, that means our header is going to be twice as large as our body font right here. It's going to be twice as large as that. And that's why these relative units come in handy, because sometimes just using a fixed unit might be a little difficult when you have to change the screen size of your website or whatever you're looking at. So we'll set that. The color of the header we'll set to white. The text transform we'll talk about, I'll make that be none. We'll talk about that in just a minute. The border of the bottom will be black, and we'll set the font family here just to fantasy to make it look a little different. So let's see it first, what it looks like. Let me save it and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about it. Let's go up here. This is my first website. Let's hit refresh. And then there you can see this, all of that code did this to our website. This is my first website. It changed the font family to a fantasy font, and we didn't give it any specific. We just gave it the generic fantasy name, and this is what pulled up from the browser. It also made it twice as big as the default size for the body, made it twice as big. It centered it, and it gave us some padding. You notice how our content here is still right up against the edge here. So this is giving us padding on the outside here, on the inside of this box. So it's centered and it has some padding around it as well. And so a couple things I want to point out to you that you can also do is I put around here, text transform none. You can change a bunch of this. So let's say I wanted to do something with text transform or do something with the font family. If instead of fantasy, I put sans serif, we could change very easily the way this looks. Hit refresh, and now this is my website. So that has a very different look and feel to it. So you can see when you start to build, as you start to build websites, you can get a look and feel that you want, or whatever your client or customer want, whatever you want that to look like, you can start to make that feel that way. So you play around with the font family here. You can be specific as we were up here and name a specific font family and then put a generic family at the end. You typically do that just to make sure the person has the font available on their computer. You put more than one usually. But right now I'm just going to put it back to Fantasy because I like the way that it looks as a font family, and save that. Text transform, you can make a text to be uppercase. If I wanted to, I can make it uppercase. And that's why I kind of put that in there to let you know you can play around with it. You can do whatever you want with text transform. You can make it capitalized. Sometimes you'll see things that are all lowercase. So I go back up here, I'll hit this. It goes back to the Fantasy font, but you notice that it's all uppercase. So do what you want with that. You can play around with it. Start to kind of look and mesh and mix and match this to the way you want it. I'm going to go set this back to none because I like that a little bit better. But play around. But these are the styles that we currently have for our website. We've been able to look at applying. How do you apply color? How do you apply a border? And notice in this case, we only have a border at the bottom. We don't have a border because it's bleeding with other stuff. So we kind of have a border that's bleeding into this. And it works with the effect that we have with our linear gradient. But just play around with this. We have a border bottom that we've set. We've worked with colors. We've worked with padding and how you do font families. All of that we've worked with in this exercise right now. And just by doing that, we've been able to set up our HTML and body size. We've been able to do some general overall body styles with our body in terms of margin and making it centered with this auto part right here, as well as adding a font family. So there's a number of things you can do here. And what I ask you to do is I'd like for you to play around with this and kind of make this your own and get your own feel for this as we move into our next exercise, which will talk a little bit about the nav bar and how you style a nav bar using descendant selectors and things of that nature.